Welcome to Stoughton Spotlight. I'm your host, Jeffrey Pickette. On this episode, we'll be doing our Conversations with the Candidates series, this time for the April 2018 election. And with me today is Stephen Cavey, who's an incumbent selectman on the board. This particular cycle, the Board of Selectmen has 2 seats up, and there are 4 candidates running for the 2 seats. And just a few months ago, you joined me as a candidate for selectmen looking to get on the board during the recall election. You were successful along with Christine Howe and Rick Hill. And your particular seat you were running for at the time had an expiration date of April 2018. So you're back to look for a full 3-year term.
That's correct. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining me today. And as we do on all the shows, it's a 30-minute conversation where you'll get to hear from each of the candidates from the selectmen and the school committee. Those are the 2 contested races this cycle running for in this April election. So let's just start with in a couple months that you've been on the board as a selectman, what have you learned so far? What's been maybe something that's different that you didn't anticipate when you were running, now that you are a selectman, maybe something you perceived one way and now in practice it's different. So just kind of explain to us what it's been like so far.
Sure. I spoke with a lot of people in anticipation of that election. So there weren't a lot of things that came as a surprise to me. We had conversations with a lot of people who had been selectmen in the past, and so we had a pretty good idea of what we were looking at coming in. And because we had some really good guidance, and also once we got elected, there were a lot of people who were willing to help us out tremendously. I really don't feel like there were any huge surprises where something happened and we just had no idea that was going to happen. The process itself was very interesting. We jumped right into it, and the first thing that we had to tackle, the first major obstacle was the budget for the town. And at this point we'd had while this is going on, we had a switch from interim town manager Stephen Astis to our current interim town manager Mark Tisdale. And what we found was with the amount of talent that our town has, we were able to get through that process. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of people who had to find ways of compromising, and there were some also very difficult to digest realities about just how much money we have, and how we need, there's things we need to spend and there's things we would really like to spend on. And so that process was a huge challenge. And for us, we were able to find a lot of common ground. We were able to work cooperatively and find a way through those problems. And just a really big part of that, the people I would like to thank the most for that is, first and foremost, I'd like to say, Mark Tisdale, the interim town manager, did an absolutely outstanding job. And a lot of that had to do with his leadership style and the fact that he has a really good reputation within town hall. He works with people, he cooperates with people just as part of his nature. And that has really helped him facilitate this, especially the part that was difficult for people, the having to absorb cuts or make compromises was something that he was able to facilitate. I think a lot of it had to do with the sort of the equity that he built up with the other town employees. I'd also really like to thank all of the town employees, the department heads who a lot of times had to make those they were the ones that were ultimately making those decisions about what they were going to keep and what they were willing to set aside for the time being. And those decisions were extremely difficult. I can't thank them enough for sort of having the courage to do it and having the stomach for it. It's a very tough job. All of them deserve a round of applause for that. It was absolutely amazing, the amount of work they put into that. And I'd also like to thank our current chairman, Bob O'Regan. He's done a really great job. He's now he was a senior member. He has about 6 years on the board at this point, and his seniority is so he's got 6 years, and the next person in line had less than a year. So his seniority has really helped us bridge the gap, and he's kind of been helping us out, guiding us with the procedural aspects of the job. But he hasn't been sort of persuading us towards anything. He's just kind of laying out, these are the facts, this is these are the things we have to look at. He hasn't been trying to manipulate or anything like that. He actually has been working really hard to get our opinions on things, help us understand the roles and responsibilities, and help us carry this budget, in this case, across the finish line. And so I just want to thank him again for the work he's done on that.
So you touched on several points that I'd like to go into a little bit more detail
Sure.
on. Let's start with the budget, though. And now, granted, when we're filming this, for the viewers who are watching, this is the end of February,
Yeah.
and closer to election time, things could look very different. And
Yeah.
certainly by town meeting in May, things could look completely different than they do right now. But as we speak today, what's this town's budget? Where do we stand budget-wise?
Yeah. So right now, it's a really tricky subject because it is a moving target for some reasons I'll kind of go into for a second. These are probably things you're aware of. Not everybody's sort of has their eye on this. So the first people to really touch the budget, coming from the department heads and through the town manager, are the Board of Selectmen. They have to kind of sign off on a budget. There was an expectation. It hasn't always happened, but there was an expectation for us that we wanted to get a balanced budget. That means that the amount of money coming in matched the amount of money we were looking to spend, and so we didn't want to sort of send this to the next set of people, who's the finance committee, and have them have to find that difference, right? Have to find what I think we were when we first got the budget. I think we were $2.8 million over the amount of money that we were expected to receive, and that's so $2.8 million. Like, where do you find that, right? And so if you send that to the finance committee, you're basically sort of abdicating your responsibility, and you're passing it on to the next guy and saying, like, I don't know, go find $2.8 million in the budget. And we didn't really want to do that. So we worked with, actually we had the chair of the finance committee sitting with us during the budget hearings to kind of give him a head start on the work he had to do. We also wanted to get his opinion early on because the turnaround times are just very tight for them. And so we're trying to make that possible. So the reason why there's a bit of a moving target is because the revenue coming in is mostly, almost entirely, to a large portion, estimated. There's a lot of estimates in there, and those numbers roll in slowly over a very long period of time. So the estimates we're working with are, they're very conservative, oftentimes. For good reason. But in this case, it's better to go under than to go over.
Sure.
So they're very conservative, but the numbers are just, they're not actual, right? We have estimates, and they're the best that we can do with the information we have available. But we've got to balance the budget, which against these sort of imaginary numbers. And I don't mean that disparagingly, but they're things that we have a good sense are going to be higher, but we really kind of are checking our gut. There's no crystal ball to tell what we're going to actually have. So we were able to balance it against the estimates that we currently have. The day after we submitted a balanced budget to FinCom, I think it was like within 24 hours, some of those numbers had become actual, and they had actually fallen back out of line, and we were now, I think, under, I want to say, 250,000, which is something that the finance committee, in my talks with them, they seem to be they're well equipped to work with that sort of disalignment, and they have the talents and the skills and the information to find that. But we might find, when the next set of numbers roll in, it swings the other way.
Right.
And that's why you said, like, when we actually get to town meeting, this number is going to be bouncing all over the place.
So, that being said, what would you say, regardless, are your budget priorities for fiscal year 2019, which will be the budget that town meeting votes on, regardless of what the state of affairs, fiscally speaking, is by then? What are these are must-haves?
Well, the must-haves for the budget really, I kind of want to answer a different question, so I don't want to go off on a bit of a tangent. but our, so our job is, to the best of our ability, is to arm our town employees to do the job they need to do. It's sort of we just want to keep. We're trying to keep the ship afloat. Our priority is honestly not to cut anything. We don't want to start removing definitely not people, right? We want to do none of that if possible. Our employees are our most valuable resource, and our town employees are outstandingly talented people. So we do not want to cut that under any circumstance.
But that is, in fairness, that is where most of the budget comes from.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And then the compromises that we were able to find actually relied on personnel to a large degree. I'll go into that in 1 second. But so we don't want to lose the people because they're extremely valuable. They are the reason why government functions at all. They're the ones actually doing the work. But also, I mean, the rest of the budget are the tools they need to do their work. So, I mean, it's sending people out without shovels. Like, is that any more valuable than not having people there to do it at all? And so, our goal was to really keep the trains running, the doors open, keep the government functioning with the tools they need to the best of our ability, and also the people there. The way we were able to, and I should say, I don't want to take credit for this. I definitely, blessed it in the sense that, we voted on this, but this was the extremely hard work of the department heads and the town manager. We were able to find, that there were a lot of positions where people had either left or retired, or so somehow were their positions that were didn't currently exist, but there were departments that were asking for new positions to come into existence, and we were able to just find a lot of the money to balance the budget by setting those aside and saying, like, maybe we don't do this right now. This is a position that's it's vacant and we just don't fill it right now, and so we can kind of save some money on the budget doing this. That is not ideal. You don't want to starve these departments of their people. In some cases, those hits were pretty substantial. There were some important roles that we just didn't have the financing for them. And so that's where we were able to with the cooperation of the department heads and the town manager, find some of this. Is just to find positions. As you said, payrolls. That's always your biggest hit is payroll, but it's kind of like that because they're the most important part of it.
I know public safety is usually the biggest, and from a Board of Selectmen municipal side, public safety is usually the biggest headlined item in terms of, especially when it comes to staffing. Where are we right now with staffing on the police and fire side?
Yeah, so I think we've I've forgotten the exact numbers. I think that in the case of, I think it's the firemen, I hope I'm not messing this up, that we're getting a couple additional firefighters, I believe, and then I think that our I want to say our police are flat from the prior year. I agree that I might be mixing that up. I apologize, but we're gaining a couple of extra people on one side, and public safety is it's critical. And it's something that we've been neglecting, and it's not because we wanted to. I mean, I've heard people who I disagreed with in prior elections speak very passionately about public safety and how we need to increase it, and then just making the math work where you can actually afford it is the tough part. We've have some very creative department heads. I think some of the things I've seen out of the fire department stand out to me. Chief Larcy's done some really remarkable things trying to make the impossible possible, and he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. But when we see things like Fire Station 1, which people have been complaining about forever, I heard during one of the meetings that there's a family of feral cats living in it. Mm-hmm. They're not able to close their windows. There's leaks. There's problems with it. I mean, there's people living here. There's people living here as part of their job, and that is just so disrespectful to the work that they're doing. And what troubles me the most is that firefighters, the ones I've known personally, they're stoic people. They're very capable. They're resilient. They're willing to take one sort of on the chin if they for the greater good, and so I think that's happened a little bit too much. They're kind of. I really feel like they're being a little bit abused here because they've been asked to really operate within subpar conditions. They're not adequate for what they have to do.
So what's the realistic solution there? With so much money in the town tied up in other building projects, what's the realistic way to go about fixing that?
Yeah. So I mean, if I had a magic wand, I have my own idea. This is a cooperative. This is going to have to be a cooperative decision. So there's a lot of people who are going to have a lot of views on it. What I would, if in a round table of people I was talking to, and I just had to throw an idea out there, and I hope this doesn't this doesn't blow up in my face. But the one I would say is, this town has a lot of land that we aren't using. We own a lot of properties that for which we have no intended purpose, right? And so if I kind of look to my own personal financial decision making, I'd say if there's like this really nice thing I want to get, right? Really nice TV, like you kind of look around and you say like, hey, what can I sell here, right? I'm not using that. I'm not using that. And I have no, this is old. I'm not going to use it. I have no intention to use that. And if I was, making this decision unilaterally, which I'm not, I would say, well, let's take some of these spots that we have just no intended use for, that we can't get anything out of, we don't want to, and let's sell them, and let's use that money that we get to either purchase. Hopefully we have a lot that's very valuable. If that's the case, let's go ahead and get ourselves a new fire station, and let's do that. Let's make use of that property because we just can't allow this to keep on happening. We can't keep this can down the road anymore. Right now, just as an example, just to keep that building functioning to like just the most basic level, the amount of maintenance we have to do in it is outstanding. I think I want to say it's more than $1 million that's going to have to be spent in the next year or two to get it just up to the point where it's livable, right?
Right.
Right. And that's
And that's like are you putting a Band-Aid on a gaping
wound? It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. Just to get, we've deferred money on, we've deferred all of the maintenance on it for so long that now just to get it back up to a place where it's like barely functional, it's going to cost us half the cost of a brand new station. And we can't not do it. We've backed ourselves into a corner. It's, when I talk to people about this, I kind of relay my own personal experience with, when I was younger and I had a car that was just like, you're not getting paid enough. You have a beat up car that you gas and insurance is maxing you out, and so when the windshield wipers go up, like you're just going to have to, you have to kind of decide like, what am I going to give up to do this and to fix this, and this car's not going to last that much longer, and your tires are bald. One of the saddest things in the world is when your car gets essentially totaled. When you bring it to the dealer and they're like, it's going to cost more to fix it than it's worth.
Right.
And you just filled it up with gas, right? Like there's nothing more depressing than knowing like you just filled it up with gas and and you're not even gonna be able to use it. But it's just one of the very troubling realities of the situation is that we can't not put that money into the building because, as I said, there's people living there, like their health is at stake. But the idea that if we had just thought ahead a little bit, we might not, there's a possibility we might not have put ourselves in the situation where we could have put that money towards, have the down payment of a brand new building if we just spent the time to think it through earlier. And I'd like to do that now, right? So now's the time to do that.
So these half hours go by pretty quickly, and we have about 8 minutes left.
It's unbelievable.
So I know.
Absolutely unbelievable.
So what I'd like to do, and I touch on a couple of points that you brought up right off the bat in the show. I'll start with Bob O'Regan. He's also running this election cycle.
Yeah.
Are you willing to support or state that you're publicly supporting his candidacy as well? You'd like to see both of you reelected to the Board of Selectmen.
So of the people who are running, I have no ill will towards anybody. I really wish everybody that's on the field as much success And if they're elected, I'll support them 100% and in what they're trying to accomplish. Of the other people running, one of the things that I would have a hard time as just a regular voter. Just if take myself out of this equation, I'd have a really hard time as just a regular voter saying that it's okay to have a board filled with 5 people who have at max a year's worth of experience. And I like Mr. O'Regan very much, Selectman O'Regan very much. I think he's very capable, but I think that his institutional knowledge right now is absolutely critical. And I'd have a hard time seeing how we, it's not that it couldn't happen, but man, the mistakes we'd be making without somebody who had that institutional knowledge would be very risky at this point. So he has my support, and I do intend to vote for him. But I really want to make it clear, like the other people running are excellent candidates, and they deserve everyone's consideration as much as that.
And the other topic was town manager situation, which is kind of twofold. One, I'd like you to talk about the decision to go from Stephen Astos, who was the interim town manager, to Mark Tisdale, who is currently in that role, and why. Now, just for the viewer's sake, Mr. Anastos' contract was expiring at the end of 2017, so I think it was like December 31st was the expiration date. So you needed to take an action one way or another, whether it was extending him or finding somebody else. Why was the decision made not to extend Mr. Anastos and look elsewhere?
Yeah, well, we just as a board, we decided we wanted to, we felt like, and this is nothing against Mr. Anastos, he's besides being just a excellent person. He was I've got no complaints with his performance as a town manager, and his willing to step into what was he came in at a very difficult time, and I want to give him credit for all these things. I've got nothing against him whatsoever, but as a board, we kind of felt like the process in which he became town manager didn't sit well with us, and so we wanted to sort of a redo on this. We wanted to say that I desperately wanted him to submit a resume. Part of the problem is that nobody really got a chance to see his credentials. And I'm not saying he didn't have credentials for the job, but nobody got a chance to view those. There was no public hearing to ask any questions of him, and I didn't really feel like that was really appropriate. We can't allow our government to do those types of things and then expect good out of it. And I won't take us too much on a tangent. I know we're tight on time, but part of that is because it's you might say it's fine this one time, but once you kind of set that precedent, it becomes the rule, and then it's just a matter of like we're never going to look at anybody's resumes, we're never going to check anybody's credentials, we're never going to ask them a public question. We're just going to kind of handpick these people. So it might have been done right this time, but it's just not the way you do things, and it's for a reason. It's a very risky move in an organization to do that. Pluck somebody and just put them in. So we wanted we feel kind of strongly about having the regular process. Have resumes and people ask for the job, and you have a public hearing, and we open it up to all town employees who were department heads.
Were you concerned that there was only one interview and there weren't more applicants overall?
Yeah, actually, I voiced that during the meeting itself. So in case of Mr. Anastos, he did not apply for that. So we wanted to do this regular process, and for reasons that are I'm not aware of, he decided that he was going to bow out there, and I consider that a shame. I think it would have been nice to see see him compared. I wanted to early on. I said that I kind of wanted to make sure there wasn't just one person applying for this job, and I really felt like, if we're going to do this, we got to do it right, and I want to do it right. So we ended up with only one person who had a public hearing. We did have, I think, 3 applicants, I believe. One of them was ruled out because we had only opened it up to department heads, and it was fortune kind of favors the bold. So I appreciate the fact that there was another employee who didn't have that credential but applied. I think that was a really great move. Somebody who was like really dedicated to the town, wanted to do good, but we had to rule him out because it didn't fulfill the requirements. The there were two more candidates who did apply. One was not able to appear for the public hearing, and also there was she's a dedicated town employee and wanted to apply, but there was some language in the application, her letter to us, that I found a little bit confusing about what the role was exactly that she wanted to occupy, and so it seemed like it might not be a good fit. So we ended up with one public hearing. When we had that hearing, you can kind of go to the videotape. I did express the fact that I really wasn't very happy with the fact that we only ended up with one public hearing. But based on the merits alone, I felt actually that Mr. Tisdale's credentials were actually very strong. Selectman Hill made an excellent point that he wouldn't proceed if he felt like that we were just kind of picking from the only thing, or picking our only choice for no good reason. He also expressed, he kind of convinced me that if we really looked at this objectively and just kind of judged him only on what we know, he actually is an excellent candidate. He has a lot of experience stepping in as an acting town manager.
So we have little time left, but in all fairness, we're filming today on the night of a selectmen's meeting where you'll be discussing the next permanent town manager.
Yeah.
Should that have been something done sooner, or are you satisfied with the timeline, it being a couple months after the recall election?
I feel comfortable with it, because the priorities were we had some priorities we had to walk right into: a budget. We had to set up the articles for town meeting, and those were things that just could not be set aside at all, for any purpose. So they took the priority. They're the first thing we had to do, but we are acting on this as quickly as we could. And the process itself, we expect to not be quick, right? It's going to take several months. So this isn't something you kind of jump into. It's something we're going to really consider thoughtfully, and we're going to try to make the best decision we can.
All right, well, thank you. I'll give you a few seconds. Our clock's expired, just to pitch to voters, and we'll sign off. So.
Sure, I'm going to keep it very simple. So I've been a selectman now only for a couple of months. I was elected during the recall election. There's a lot of work I still want to accomplish for our town. I think we have a lot of potential, and I have some education and some work experience as a tax accountant, mutual fund tax accountant, and my education is a master's from Harvard Extension School in finance and controls. I think I've got I've got some of the skills to really help out here, especially where I think our main problems lie in the financial aspects of our town. I think I've got a lot to contribute there. We have a lot of excellent candidates. I think if anybody else were to win and I lose the seat, I feel comfortable this town's going to do well. But I think we're in good shape overall. But I think that I have some abilities and some talents that could really be useful in these next couple of years. So thank you very much, and please, I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining me today, and make sure you check out our other conversations with the candidates, both selectmen and school committee contested races for both boards. I'm Jeffrey Pickette. You've been watching Stoughton Spotlight, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.